Welcome, Writer Moms. I am really excited today because I have another interview for you. I'd like you to meet Stephanie Ann Roy. Stephanie Ann is an amazing person. First thing I'd like to tell you is she's in our class. She's one of us. And like so many of us, she's got a unique story. I mean, we all have a unique story. And I'm looking forward to having you meet her. And also, I'd like you to be thinking about when am I going to be interviewing you and letting you tell us your unique story. Well, Stephanie Ann is an entrepreneur. She's been an entrepreneur for 20 years, and she has been building brick and mortar community-based businesses where she actually creates little villages that empower the people that come to her businesses. She'll tell you about what those are like. She has always had an entrepreneurial spirit. She began as a martial arts instructor at quite a young age, and she helped grow the business and now is, I believe, co-owner, if not owner outright of that business. And for the past 10 years, she's been involved in something called Momentum Learning Systems, where she and her partner, Ken Caputo, have really researched interesting ways of presenting material. In fact, I'm going to let you guys know that I am starting to study under them for presenting material. And when this class is done, I'm actually going to have another iteration of the class where I try to present it using momentum learning techniques. So if you stick around, you'll get to compare how the two differ and let me know what you think about how momentum learning works. I'm really excited about that. So she's an integrator and has been involved in systems building. And she believes that we can all better ourselves in service to others. She's a mom. She's homeschooling her son. She likes NASCAR and tabletop role-playing games. And like us, with all the craziness going on in her life, she's struggling to get 10 or 15 minutes here and there to write. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Stephanie.
Well, so what would you like to know? How should we dive in? There's a lot in there that we could talk about.
Well, people are probably curious when I mentioned martial arts. Why don't you tell us about that a little bit for starters?
Sure, I can give you my origin story of how that came to be. So I did dance from when I was 3 years old until age 11, and then it was kind of time to get serious or move on and find something else to do, and I didn't want to spend all that time on the bar and everything doing ballet. So for a little while, I kind of floated without any particular activity, and then I saw my younger cousin, practicing karate in my grandma's driveway. And I was like, why not? And so we found the local school in town, and I got really lucky. And the focus was on personal growth and development. Martial arts was just the vehicle, that the way that it was shared of how to be your best self. And I just sort of never left. So I jumped in very quickly and became like a junior instructor, got involved in that program. And then as soon as I turned 16, I got hired as an instructor. And then from there, I again just sort of never left, stuck around, stayed consistent, and then I ended up becoming the chief instructor of the school, kind of like the lead instructor. I always helped with the back end stuff, like developing programs and all of that type of things. And then eventually, the way it worked out, I did end up taking over ownership of the martial arts school. So that's in Mansfield, Connecticut, is where our dojo is located. But I really love the martial arts because it teaches you how to develop things like focus and discipline and all that kind of classic stuff that people think about when they think about the martial arts. But it's a great tool for just developing like a connection within yourself. So we talk about like the three treasures, or so you've got mind, body, and spirit, like I'm sure most people have heard of before. And just the way that the martial arts gets your brain active while also getting your body moving, while also, connecting emotionally to the things that you're doing. It just creates this synergy through your body, mind, and spirit, through the two halves of your brain, through the coordination that you're doing with the movement. So there's a lot of great stuff. Actually, it just came up in another group that we're a part of, the book The Extended Mind by Annie Murphy Paul, was like this wonderful thesis of why the martial arts is so amazing. That wasn't her focus. It's about learning and how to really learn and understand things. We want to learn with our whole being. It's not just about your brain, that glob of gook in your head. It's everything. It's the emotional connection. It's the way that we move. It's things like gestures, and just getting that embodied experience, which I think then extends into helping with writing as well. I mean, that's a lot of what you're doing with your work for writer moms, is helping create that connection to the emotional experience quickly, like creating those triggers so we can dive back in, and using physical tools so it's embodied, we can connect back to things. So yeah.
And you expanded this beyond the martial arts. Unfortunately, COVID kind of put an end to that. But can you tell us about the community that you established, the village that you built?
Yes. So Quester's Way was kind of the evolution. So it was the Eevee turning into a Flareon for Pokemon fans out there. But for kids who are into Pokemon, for all the moms. So with the martial arts, again, it's all about personal growth and development. But we ended up kind of hitting a roadblock, a ceiling on how much we felt like we could help our community, because not everybody wants to punch and kick. It's just not going to speak to every child and every family that's out there. So the center is a long winding story to get there, but the center that we created is called Quester's Way. So it's a family education, empowerment, and entertainment center. So it's a 16,000 square foot facility in this little mall in our community. And it was in an old like J.C. Penney space. They had like cut it up into 3 different stores. So we had a big chunk of it. Our martial arts dojo was connected to it, and it's actually still there in that location. But then we had an indoor play park. So no screens, no technology. It was all just about getting the kids together to be kids. So kind of like, older generations. I think it tailed off with my generation really, but that whole like go outside and just play, like that was what the park was supposed to be. It was that place where kids could just be kids. We staffed it with educators so that they were in there to help the kids socially interact and just make sure that everyone was having a good time, and also bring in some educational opportunities as well. So sometimes the music teacher would go in there and bring a snare drum, and they'd get to do fun stuff, or an educator would come in and tell a story, or those types of things. So we had the park, and then there was a healthy foods cafe, fast casual cafe, and then we had 5 classrooms that had all kinds of different opportunities. So we had everything from obviously martial arts. We had beginner dance lessons, beginner gymnastics. We did things like Zumba for adults. We had breakdancing classes. And then there were brain-based classes, so like messy science, and we had art and all kinds of fun things. Chess was another one that people actually really liked. And then there was also the connect portion, the relationship side of it, where we had games like we had a Pokemon cards class where kids could come in and actually learn how to use all those Pokemon cards that they collected and play the game. Magic cards, and then also Dungeons and Dragons was a really big one, and that's one that's even held over. We have a group of us that connected through the center that still continue to play together to this day. And yes, so just before COVID happened, large facility, small town, learned a lot about the challenges of demographics. So we unfortunately had to shut that center down after 4 years. But we have plans and hopes and dreams to open another one again in a more demographically dense area. Because as much as we want to do amazing things in the world, money makes the world go around. So it's gotta, we gotta be able to keep the lights on, in addition to doing all of the wonderful things for our community. But it was a really awesome experience all the way through.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. That was really, really interesting. I'd like to kind of put a pin in the tabletop games, because I'd like to bring that back up in a little bit. But while we're on the entrepreneur thing, why don't you tell us a little bit about the venture that you're involved in right now that I joined yours after you joined mine. So I mean, we're both, you're my student and I'm your student. Tell me a little bit about that venture and what you're bringing together, the people you're bringing together and what you're doing for them.
Yeah, so again, it's another evolution out of our experience in the martial arts. As we developed our martial arts school, we created a lot of programs, by listening to our community and what they needed and what the benefits were that they were looking for. We created all of these different programs. Off the Mat was a way to get families coming in and being able to do some stuff together, because we don't really run family classes because ages have, they have their own needs. But this was a once a month class that we did for the community and for our students where they could come in and experience it together. Community Connections is a program that we do where we go out in the community and we do something social or educational or charitable. So like marching in parades, or we've done like field trips to local farms and museums and things like that. And then we've also raised a lot of money for local and national charities. So like right now we have a pink belt event going on. So pink is not one of the martial arts belt colors. So between the month of September and October, because September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and then obviously October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. If they make a donation, this year we're doing the proceeds for Dana-Farber, which is a cancer center in Boston, Massachusetts. If they make a donation, they can get a pink belt and wear it in classes. So that's like a community connection event where we're doing something that connects our students to their community. And then we have a Go Beyond the Grades program, which is all about school readiness and really explicitly taking those lessons of focus and discipline and respect and self-control and like connecting it very obviously to, how they can use it to help their school experience. So we had all of these different creative solutions to help our families, our local families, and then other martial arts schools started getting interested. Sorry. They started getting interested in the programs that we had. And so we started thinking about developing things for scale. And that's always been something that's behind a lot of what we do is thinking about how we can allow it to grow, how we can make things duplicatable, how we can build systems so that other people can implement them, or that we can be more effective in implementing them. So tying back in, the system that you're doing for your writer moms, like that's what you're creating. You're building this framework that's going to help, more people grasp on and get to do this cool thing. So as we developed all these programs, we started getting attention not just from other martial artists, but also other business owners that were interested in some of the things that we were doing and the way that we were developing things. And my partner and I have always been voracious learners. So if we're going to do business, we're going to study how to do it well. If we're going to be teachers, we're going to study learning and how the brain works and how to do it well, the best that we can. So as we dove into all of these different aspects, we learned a lot of things that helped our businesses, and now we'd like to share that with others. So that's where Momentum Learning came from. Actually, it was originally the Fifth Dimension Institute was the original kind of consulting business that we created, and it was more focused on those martial arts programs. And then just as things evolved, kind of rebranded as our learning system evolved, and we gave it a name, and it became Momentum Learning Systems. That became, it felt like the right name for the consulting company. So Momentum Learning Systems is the system that we use to teach in our martial arts dojos, because again, it's all about that duplicatability. So one of the dangers as an entrepreneur is you can end up in a keystone business situation where you are the business. So if you're sick or you want to go on vacation or, life happens, you can't really take a break unless you set it up really, really well. And if you're for some reason gone someday, the business is done. So like right now we're working with a martial artist who has run an amazing business for 30 years himself, and now he wants to retire, and he doesn't know what to do because he has no pipeline. He has no duplicatable systems to help the people that are coming up behind him. So one of the aspects of the consulting that we're doing is for martial artists. There's those martial arts centric programs, but really our focus is for any entrepreneurial teacher, to bring it back to the program that you're a part of with the Integrated Entrepreneur Academy. So that's for entrepreneurial teachers that are really interested in expanding their impact, clarifying their value, expanding their impact, and then leaving a legacy, something that lasts beyond them, that they can, somehow pass on to other people in the future. And an entrepreneurial teacher doesn't mean that you own a business, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're in a traditional teacher role. It's an entrepreneur. Someone who's entrepreneurial is someone that isn't satisfied with the current solutions that are available, and they feel driven to bring something out into the world that's going to help, create a solution for people that doesn't already exist. So they feel that calling, to share with the world. And then a teacher is just anyone that wants to see the growth and betterment of the people around them. They want to share tools and information that are going to help people be their best selves. So you can be an entrepreneurial teacher and be working in HR at a big corporation, or you can be an entrepreneurial teacher as a photographer, or, what you'd more think of like a coach or someone, developing a course on YouTube. All of those types of things can be entrepreneurial teachers. It's more about the mindset. So we're helping people in those kinds of roles clarify their value, build for scale, and leave a legacy.
No, thank you so much. I know for myself, what attracted me to it was the focus on the people that you're serving, helping the people that you're serving to become their best selves. Mm-hmm. And through understanding that this happens in sort of like a spiral, a repeatable patterns that come around, and each time around you have a little more growth. And so I've kind of challenged with material that I'm presenting. So we have like the 28 character traits that we all know about, and it's like bing, 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 bing. We're just going through all 28. And after this class, which I'm going to complete because this is the plan, is to talk about maybe is there a way we can have an after class where we just, it's not like a lesson 1 of 12 or something. It's like this week we're going to pick this cluster of related character traits, review them briefly, and then practice them. And so I'm looking forward to finding another way of presenting the information that lets us let's involve us as people, those who are listening to us and are doing this, so that we can take it into our work more completely, and not just into our brains, but into ourselves as a role model, into the writing as to how we express it, and just, be more focused on the person. And I'm excited about that whole aspect of it. And I'm especially excited that I've seen some of the work that you and Ken have done, and it's pretty amazing. Well, we did promise to put a pin into your tabletop games. And you mentioned that you started them up when you were doing Quester's Way, and that they're continuing on, but they're also tied into your writing, aren't they? You want to tell us about that, and then take us into what you're writing and why you're writing?
Yeah, definitely. So tabletop role-playing games means games like Dungeons and Dragons, which is the most popular one. There's tons of tabletop role-playing games. Pathfinder is another big one. But they all kind of have the same general idea of it's part improv, collaborative storytelling, and then a little bit of a board game element where there are elements of the story that are determined by a die roll. So if you get really into it, there's multiple different size dice that we don't have to go into today, but like for Dungeons and Dragons, it's mostly based on a D20, and then that determines the success or failure of whatever it is that you're trying to do, whether it's climb a tree or shoot a bow and arrow or intimidate a palace guard. You kind of have this randomized factor that comes in from the die roll, which makes it a little bit like a board game, but you get to go through this whole collaborative storytelling as a group that's really fun. And so I played it first, actually, before we opened Quester's Way. If there's any D&D people out there, I started with, I think 3.5 edition was the first one I ever played. They're coming out with like 6th edition right now, but they're not calling it that, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. So you have a character that you create based on this character creation process, and then you play out scenarios within each session at the table. There's a practice, like, to get started. What a lot of people do is they'll write a backstory for their character, so kind of how they got to wherever they are now, and then the story evolves from there. So when COVID happened, especially for that first month, we were all bored. We learned that playing D&D 5 times a week is way too much. But we really had the time to dive in, and writing is something that I've always enjoyed. I have this moment in my head. It never actually went anywhere. But I was just messing around one time as a kid. I was probably like 9 or 10 years old, and I just made this little, book out of printer paper, and it had this girl that was like a pink triangle, and I don't know, there was some whole story. And my parents were like, "Oh, this is amazing. Like, I could see a whole series of this where you use different shapes, and it's like teaching kids about shapes, like little children's books." And that moment really sticks out to me as being like, "Oh, I could be a writer." That, and not like it, not like I that's the only thing I would be, but like I could just do this fun thing sometime. And I don't even remember that, like, what the story was, or if that still exists, that little book still exists somewhere, but it kind of put that idea in my head of, wouldn't it be fun to write someday? And more recently, I've kind of thought more nonfiction, because of my own journey through like personal growth and development and all that stuff. But as we were stuck at home during COVID with not much to do, I read Anne Lamont's book, Bird by Bird, which is a beautiful book about just wisdom for writing and for life. And I really enjoyed it, and I read it multiple times. And one of the things that she suggests is a habit of writing 300 words a day. So just creating that discipline of finding that little niche of time where you can write. And she gives you some ideas of things. She talks about things you can write about, like especially, stories from your childhood, and just kind of letting things collect. And especially if you're feeling stuck on whatever your big project is that you're working on, just writing something, just to get the ball rolling, to get momentum. So I started doing that with random stuff. I have a whole bunch of I have some half finished stories of, growing up or whatever, and, all these little snippets and tidbits. And then I decided, why not, invest some time in fleshing out the story for my D&D character. So I wrote out her backstory more in depth than I had originally. And then I started writing in betweens, because the way we have our sessions set up, there's space. Like, we play a game, and that's like one like little quest, one little mission. And then there's like some space in between, like in story time, there's like a 2-week gap or a few days of a gap. So I started filling in that gap of what she was doing during that time. And I just kept writing a little bit every day. And then all of a sudden, I think I'm up to 180 pages of her story. And it's kind of started to round itself out. Like, I think she's gone through the character arc that she was meant to go through. But it was a really neat thing where I didn't set out to write a novel. And now I have enough words to make a novel. It wouldn't stand alone, because it's very much enmeshed with the stories that we've written, which is kind of a unique way that we do our D&D campaign. We write everything out, since we do it online because COVID. That was one of the gifts that the pandemic gave us, was we had to go online, and then to make sure that communication was clear, we started typing out all of the stuff in the chat. So our DM, our dungeon master, that's like the lead storyteller person, writes out the stories after for us. So we're working on book 4 of that. And then I have all of Zoe's story in the background. So now I for a little while, like especially as we were talking when we were when I, you were starting all of this, I was thinking about, trying to take that story and make it something that could stand alone. But I think it's good in a little bubble, even though nobody could read it without the companion novels and understand it. I think her story has been told in a way that's satisfying for me. Like it filled the need that it was meant to for me. And now I'm starting to think about the next character and writing her story in parallel to us playing the game, writing it where it does kind of stand alone. And what I think is really awesome about the whole D&D, if you're into high fantasy or that type of genre, if that's what you like to write, it provides a lot of inspiration. And it was nice as I was writing a novel for the first time, I constantly had inspiration coming from other people, because anytime I ran out of like, well, I don't know what she's going to do next, we played another game and things happened and there was development. So there was this collaborativeness to like practicing writing, to learning how to write and creating a story.
Thank you. So, with your busy schedule with multiple businesses going on, how do you find time to write?
It is challenging, I will tell you that. So it was a lot easier during the pandemic, because then what I had going really strong during, I feel like until the last 6 months, was I had kind of time in my morning routine where my son has his routine of things that he does in the morning, and those are kind of centered around helping him develop healthy habits. So, doing a little bit of movement, reading something, doing something creative, taking his vitamins, filling up a water bottle to drink during the day. So, he has this rhythm of like morning routines to go through. So, that creates space for me to have my own kind of self-care and morning routine. So that was where I had my 300 words habit. I feel like in the last 6 months or so, as things like kicked up and life turned back down after the pandemic, I found it much harder for that to have that writing time. And one of the things that started to take up space in my day is bringing my son to activities. So now a lot of times my writing time is while I'm sitting on the side while he's doing, tricking or trampolining, or he's in his piano lessons, all of those things. That's my writing time, because it pulls me out of, if I were to do it here in my office that you can't see because I have a background, but if I were to do it in this space, there's all the distractions of work and all of the other things that I should be doing. So when I remove myself from this environment, now instead of looking at my phone, which is a huge detractor of time in our day, I just pull out a notebook instead and I start writing. And I'm working on bringing in the cards from the stuff that I'm still developing, the Zettelkasten part of my writing process, but most of my writing happens now at my son's activities.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to come talk to our writer moms. Is there anything else that you would especially like to tell our writer moms before we sign off for today?
Yeah, I think so. Going back to what I'm passionate about, it's bettering yourself in service to others, and something that we talk about a lot in the work that I do is you have to fill yourself up first before you can spill over. So if there's that passion burning inside you to write a book or to paint or whatever it is, if you let that just kind of gnaw and fester inside of you while you keep giving up your time and your energy to everyone around you, even though they're noble causes, even though of course your children are absolutely worth it, if you don't ever take the time to fill yourself up, that's going to start to negatively impact your ability to show up for others. So it's important to find a way to pull in your own passions and give yourself, even if it's 15 minutes of writing, give yourself that time where you can fill yourself up, you can put your own oxygen mask on first, and then you'll show up better for the people that you love if you're feeling fulfilled as well.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I really appreciate those words of wisdom and for having you join us. If you have any questions that you want to ask Stephanie, write them into the comments, or if you're on the email list, my email list, you can just reply to one of the emails and we'll get the questions over to Stephanie. In the meantime, I'm going to ask Stephanie to give me links to a few web addresses that she thinks would be especially enjoyable to you, and probably a link to her blog. She does have a blog where she posts pretty regularly, and you might enjoy hearing more from her that way. And I thank you again, Stephanie, and for being part of our Writer Moms group. And thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye. Well, thank you. I'm going to turn off the record. Okay. Bye-bye. Well, thank you. I'm going to turn off the record. Okay.